the session by having your feedback before we start. Okay, so I'm gonna be asking you several questions about the topic of today, and I will do this through Menti. You are very well aware of Menti. Let me just share my screen so you can see the 1 second. So you can see the code that you need to write down. So if Yasmin can help me in the chat, write down the code. It's 8141687, 8141687. And of course, you have to go to menti.com. You can do it through your phone. I always find it easiest if you are opening this session on your laptop, for example. It will be easiest to open the Menti on your phone. I'm gonna do it as well just to see what you are seeing. Okay, so you will see, please enter the code. So you just put 8141687. All right. So again, menti.com. And please, I hope everybody will contribute, because the whole idea is for us to hear from you guys. All right, so let me see if we have anybody in. Not yet. So guys, I need to see the number on my right bottom corner, like adding up. So please enter your code. And tell me more about your mood, so that we always have this opening question, like, how do you feel today? You know, are you tired? Depending on where you are in the world. So I feel really productive today. I have done so much since the morning. How else do I feel? Somebody is feeling busy. Somebody is feeling excited, happy, trapped at home, tired, great. Okay. So I'm gonna be also contributing. Ready, great. So I feel concerned about making you really enjoy this session, because it's about ethics, you know, and I have been teaching ethics for 7 years at AUB, and I know not everybody engages easily with this, but I mean, let's see how I'm gonna be doing today. All right, great. So I'm gonna move to the next slide. So guys, here I'd really like to ask you more about, how do you feel about your startup or your project initiative, whatever you are calling it? Can you clearly set a roadmap to start implementing it? Do you feel confident that it will take you to different places? Do you have an understanding of your customer or beneficiary? And you use the sliders. On the left, it's you strongly disagree, and on the right, it's strongly agree. So tell me, where are you at in the spectrum? Have you started building partnerships? Do you feel confident to participate in new competitions and programs? Simply because, as I mentioned, DPCH is coming to an end soon. And of course, this is not the end of your journey. Actually, it's only the beginning. So you need to understand that this is just one opportunity that will open up many other opportunities for you. And we highly encourage you to stay active in this whole space of change making, innovation, entrepreneurship. And there are so many programs similar to DPCH that you can apply to. Some of them might be in a competition format, so you pitch and you might win. You might win several things. Sometimes it's mentorship, sometimes it's a scholarship, sometimes it's a trip, if outside of the COVID world. Sometimes it's actual cash money. Okay, so we really encourage you to keep looking for such opportunities. And I know in our one-on-one conversations, we can talk more about this, because this is what we need to help you with, like what will come after COVID, after this program, after the design post-COVID humanity. Okay, Let me try to interpret this really quickly. There's a high confidence of starting to implement, which is great. You feel confident and like you believe in this vision, amazing. You have a great understanding of your customer or beneficiary. It's 3. So I hope this will like improve with time. And today we're gonna really focus on this. I have started building partnerships. You have to start looking, and this is, I think, part of also Taaruf. We're gonna be talking more about today. And you feel confident to participate in your competitions and programs. You are highly confident, which is really, really good. So I think we are on the right path, everyone. And now I would like to ask you a question, like, what does ethics mean to you? So in one word or like a very few words, what does it mean to you? And this could be anything. You do not have to like answer, using the cliche, the known answers. It could really be anything. You can tell me it's boring if you feel it's boring, or you can tell me it's too theoretical if you feel it's theoretical. I'm always worried that people your age might find it theoretical, dry, not very practical, and this is why I want this to be interactive, a two-way discussion, because we want to make it as practical, as applicable, and as interesting and meaningful as possible. So value attachment, values, morals, honor, fairness. And you can, okay, you can only, I think, submit once. So good relations, principles and morals, choices and morals. Can someone of you tell me the difference between ethics and morals? If you know, if you would like. Again, there's no right, wrong answer here. How you exist as a person and coexist with others and other things. I love this. Yes. Anybody else would like to share and comment on what they wrote? Maybe someone from those who have opened their cameras. So just unmute yourselves, guys. Who would like to share? Ibrahim? What did you write?
I wrote value attachment.
Okay, so you greatly attach values to ethics. Can you tell us more about your own values?
One important aspect of it will be looking at someone in the same way you look at yourself, like the same way you attach value to yourself, like the person opposite you attaching similar value to that person. So you are definitely showing ethical behavior towards the person.
I love that. I love that. And this is also related to empathy, and we're going to be talking more about it. Zaid, would you like to share? I think Zaid is frozen. Iman, would you like to share?
Hi, I wrote that about, existing as a person with yourself and with others and things. I think that's from my learning so far, that's the closest or the simplest way I can describe ethics, because it's not just principles, but it's also the values you attach to the principles. So you can have bad ethics too. Initially ethics always meant good, but yeah, you can have bad principles, bad morals. And so, yeah, how you behave as a person and to others and things, because we also have to consider how we interact with our environment, something I recently came to realize as an important part of how ethical you are.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Christelle, do you have anything to share?
I think that I agree with all of them, and I wrote good relations, because when you have like the ethics and the morals, you know who trusts and you will go in the right way with your business or anything else.
I love that all of you so far, you are talking really about this human to human relationship. And this really works well with our focus for today, which is Taaruf, guys, because of course you're talking about Taaruf with other people, not with like non-living things, but with like humans. And again, it's called Design Post-COVID Humanity. So I really love how you are always thinking of ethics as how we as humans treat other humans. How do we see our relationship with them? How do we have values that will affect our this whole the way we live with other human beings? So I really love this. Thank you so much for sharing. And now I would like you to rank. Okay, so this is a ranking exercise. Why is ethics important in entrepreneurship? So again, entrepreneurship is all about starting a new endeavor, having this exercise where you are bringing something new to the table, having maybe new value to the society, and so on. So why do you think ethics is important? So you sort of touched upon why ethics is important on a personal level for us as human beings. But why do you think it's also important from an entrepreneurship perspective, from a business perspective, whenever we really want to again bring something new or start a new venture? So is it to avoid penalties and failure? Is it to have a good reputation? Is it to walk the talk, stay true to your values? Is it to build a robust enterprise or organization, or to create a win-win culture? So again, this is a ranking exercise. So I'm not telling you, like, it's not a multiple choice. Just tell me which one should go as number one, which one should go number two, etc. All right. Okay, so far we have to create a win-win culture as the mostly voted number one. Second, to build a robust enterprise or organization. Third is to walk the talk, stay true to one's values. Fourth, to have a good reputation. And fifth, to avoid penalties and failures. So I'm glad that like the negative part, you put it at the end. So it's because we all know that one way to encourage people to do the right thing is to make them somehow afraid from the bad thing that will come with it, right? If they don't do it, basically. So you should do well, because if you don't do well, you will be punished, you will go to prison, this and that. But I'm glad that you put it as like last. So it's not your drive. Your drive is the positive part of it, and not just like to avoid the negative consequence. So I love that you ranked create a win-win culture. And again, guys, I mean, I'm really glad, because it seems that you have the right kind of mindset, and I'm really grateful because this whole program is about this mindset. And this is what differentiates this program from other programs that are more like, let's say, commercial oriented, just startup oriented. So it's all about this like focus on humanity, on the win-win culture. And I really love that you rank this first. The second one, like second and third, I believe there's a tie. To walk the talk, stay true to one's value. I love the expression to walk the talk. I use it a lot in all my speaking. Basically, you'll find it somewhere, simply because I believe, guys, that this is a very important factor for people to believe you. And I'll give you an example. It's maybe a cliche example, but I really like it. So if you go to a doctor and he tells you stop smoking, and I mean, you can smell the smoke from his breath or her breath, would you really take it seriously? I mean, how much will you be convinced that, yeah, I need to stop smoking? And I know, like, I've seen you smoking just outside before I came into your office. You won't buy it. I mean, I know he's doing the right thing. I know that his profession tells him that this is the right thing, but because they are not walking the talk, I'm not gonna really buy it. And the same thing applies all over. Okay, so If you are talking about transparency and superior customer relationships and you're not really demonstrating this, nobody will believe you. And this will affect your reputation. It will affect how others look at you. It will affect their trust. It will affect their perception. So it's very important to really always walk the talk, or we say, do as you preach. If you are asking for, let's say, inclusion, you have to tell us that, to show us that you are exercising this inclusion inside the company. If you are asking for, let's say, gender equality, you have to show somehow that you are taking this seriously. It's not just saying, it's doing really, because I believe nowadays it is not that difficult to know if somebody is just bluffing, just saying stuff because they are in, or if they are really doing them. Okay, it's like, doesn't take much to be able to know this. So make sure you always walk the talk. So I can see that now we have a new second, which is to build a robust enterprise organization. I'm also very happy that this is coming up like second. Why? Because ethics will help me really create this strong organization, this strong enterprise, which is the opposite of having a weak, a weakly built enterprise. So we want, if we are building it over values and over common grounds and over ethics that we share with our employees and with our partners and with our stakeholders, basically, then this will likely hold up to difficulties, it will hold up to challenges, it will hold up to crises much more than if it was built on weak grounds. Okay, so it will really help you to build a robust enterprise and organization. To have a good reputation, this is also definitely very important, and to avoid penalties and failure, this is part of it. And again, I'm glad it's not the first priority for you. Now, when we talk about Taaruf, so we're going to dwell more into this, but I would like to hear from you. To whom are you referring to? So Taaruf is like, of course, it's you as the co-founder, as the people who are behind this new initiative, project, endeavor, startup, whatever you would like to call it. But Taaruf with whom? Like, who do we need to really get to know well? And it was translated in the program to acquaintance. Like, who should we be acquainted with, in your opinion? And the options are as follow. So we have customers, so the paying customers who will pay for your service or product, the beneficiaries, people who will benefit from your services or product, the employees, so people who are working with you in the team to achieve a certain vision, mission, to create the products, to deliver the services, your partners, any like external parties who are really working closely with you also in order to bring this service or product to life, or all of the above. So I'm glad that all of you are saying all of the above, because in reality, when we talk about Taaruf, this value, and by the way, I really like the whole idea of the 3 T's, because if you think about it, if now you want to sit down with your team and write some values, you already have 3 that were given to you, like, just, it's a gift. They're given to you, which are تعارف, تعاون, and تراحم. So of course you can translate it in any way you like, but if you truly believe in them, they are already great values to start with. They are great values to build your organization upon, to plan and prototype and design your product or service based on them. So yes, they're all of the above. And we're going to talk more about this. So what does it mean ta'aruf with my customer? What does it mean ta'aruf with my beneficiary? What does it mean ta'aruf with my employee? What does it mean ta'aruf with my partners? Great. And now, yeah, it's more open-ended. I would like to hear from you more about what are some values that you want to build your enterprise or initiative around. And I'll give you like some examples from my own social enterprise, which is Riyada for Social Innovation. So for example, we talk about partnership for the goals. So it is the name of one of the SDGs, but this is a value. because we truly believe in partnerships, and most of our programs, they revolve around partnerships. Okay, so as you know, maybe you have seen this in your business courses or in some case studies or on some websites of companies that you have visited. They always have a list of values, corporate values that they work with. And it would be really nice for you from the very beginning to think of these values, like, because whenever you're talking with your, again, co-founders, with your team, how do you want to execute this thing? How do you want to implement this thing? It's really good to not just think, you have to think of the very practical details, like what's step one, what's step two, but it's always also good to look at the bigger picture. Like, how do we want this internal organizational culture to look like? How do we want our relationship with our partners to look like? Okay, so it's very important that you keep this in mind, and it's very a good practice to really write them down and make sure that you stick to them. And of course, you can review them every now and then. So I need, maybe you're thinking about it, it's not bad. I need you to think, of course. But of course, I would like to hear from more. So engagement, innovation, inclusiveness, honesty, creativity, trust, and inclusion. Okay, there are great stuff there. Honesty, loyalty, trust, equity, justice. Who else? So I like that trust came up several times. And trust, we're talking about, is it again internal trust? Sometimes, by the way, some companies, they have internal values and external values. You can, if you would like to differentiate between the two, or if you want, they could just be like your values, which you exercise internally and externally. But it's very good to always understand that when you talk about trust, it should be inside and outside. Okay, so I need my team to trust me. I need to have this culture of trust inside the organization, and also I want to have this culture of trust with my customers, with my beneficiaries, with my partners. Okay, so it is very integrity, respect. I love this. Trust, empathy for me, honestly, empathy. And I really love that, like, you spent some time at the beginning of the program talking and doing empathy. For me, empathy is definitely one of the greatest values that you can start with. And honestly, no matter what you're doing, it will work. Okay, so it will apply no matter what you're doing. Whereas justice, for example, I can think of some examples where, like, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. Justice, depending on what you're doing. Equity, it works all the time. Trust, it works all the time. Honesty or transparency as well, it works all the time. Inclusion, definitely it works. Innovation, I love this. So if you want to have innovation as an inherent value, why not? This is amazing. And it's a way to keep the whole team reminded that we are here to innovate, we're here to bring something new. That is really great. And I think I have like 2 more questions for you. Again, because you said that you are already thinking about the way ahead, about the, you are already thinking of the roadmap that you want to set to start implementing. What are you concerned about? Any fears that you have? So any fears when it comes to ethical entrepreneurship? Are you afraid of, I don't know, competition, let's say? Are you afraid of the balance between making money and serving the society, doing good and doing well, which are 2 different things? I would like to hear from you, and maybe we can address these points as well in our discussion. So keep the values that we built our organization on in front of the challenges of reality. So yes, to stand the test of reality. This is very concerning. I totally agree with you. And this is why we're doing this, guys, because whenever you start implementation, you're going to be faced by a million like challenges. And many times you will be put at a crossroads. Should I take like a shortcut? Shall I just go with the flow, or shall I stay true to my values and to the, you know, to the three T's that we are talking about? It's a choice you have to make every single time. But I will tell you, based on case studies, based on experience, based on stories, based on history, based on everything, sometimes it feels very difficult to make the right decision, and you will see that it will have a cost. However, I assure you, again, it's not Mona speaking here, based on cases, based on research, based on history, based on all the books in the world, based on business practices, based on the crises that we have lived in the world, that the right decision will serve you every single time, even if on the very short term it seemed like it is costing you money or costing you a program or a partnership or whatever it's costing you. This is short lived, but the benefit is long lived. So never be afraid to make the right decision, the ethical decision, again, to stick to your values, to remember your vision, your mission, in order to reap the benefits later on. So on the very short run, you might lose by doing the right thing. However, this is something that you will benefit from on the longer term. So I am most concerned about ensuring that each and every person in my team acts ethically, because it will reflect badly on the whole company if they don't. Who said that? Because I think it's a great point. Who said it?
Mona, I did.
Great. So Yasmin, by the way, is an HR expert, I would say. Yasmin, from your HR perspective, what could be a mitigation for this?
Hi, everyone. During my time at Unilever, this was one of the very big points we had. So we need to like, even the brand managers, the marketing managers, our salespeople. So we had a huge number of teams. So you might start out small now, but you will hopefully grow bigger and bigger. And eventually, you can't control every single person in your company. So you need to make sure that the mindset is unified and that everyone is with you on the same page, whether you've met them or not, whether you've talked to them personally or not. So I believe that, from an HR perspective, mitigating this with first off, recruiting people who are a fit culture wise, so they have the same values, they share the same purpose, and who are constantly aligned, having weekly or monthly meetings with everyone to make sure you're on the same page. And honestly, what worked at Unilever was continuously emphasizing that we of course we do care about profits, but continuously talking about the purpose of each brand, continuously talking about the purpose of each team, the purpose of each person, so that we don't get not lost, but so that we could stay focused, because there are many distractions and many obstacles along the way. But as long as you're true to your purpose, each person will be ethical. So this is why I mentioned this, because we had some issues with the sales people on the ground, and that's the way we solved it, by making them believe in the purpose of the brand.
So that's great advice, Yasmin. And I'm gonna give another practical example. My friend, she also has a startup company, a very successful startup company. She's into it's a delivery business. They have a lot of logistics, a lot of drivers on board, and usually drivers are coming from less privileged backgrounds. She faced a lot of challenges at first to have this common value set, if I want to say, because like the admin team, you know, the core team and the drivers, they are coming from very different backgrounds, like different geographical locations, different socioeconomic status, different exposure, education, and so on. And what she did was that on a weekly basis, they had a full team meeting, like everybody, whether you're a driver, an admin, like anybody has to be in the meeting, and they would discuss issues in a very friendly way, like not I'm lecturing you about honesty, let's say, no, in a very friendly way. They have an open discussion, they have exercises on certain aspects, and together they built the value set of the company. Together they differentiated between internal, external values. Together they came out with like points they need to work on. For example, they realized that drivers are like not very confident about themselves, and they are always afraid that their job is not seen as reputable and in the eyes of other people. So they did a whole campaign and they shared it on their social media. So instead of just marketing for themselves on social media, they are changing a certain status quo or perception about drivers. So if you are really believe, like if you really believe in certain values, you will do everything to make sure that this is not just shared internally, but even externally. And I think she is doing wonders in that kind of field. Like, although she's not an HR person, she knew nothing about building teams, but because she cared a lot about having this genuinity in the team, this like coherence and belief in the same values, she learned, she brought in consultants. Some of the grants she won, she put them towards like building this value system, I would say, and it really is working. So there are many ways you can simply be innovative of how to solve similar problems, like how do we make our team all aligned, etc. I really like the point about the ruthlessness of corporate greed and corporate governments. And I want to mention one thing. Sometimes in some countries, like for example, to make your business thrive, to, for example, get some legal permits, you will hear that you need to, for example, bribe this person or that person and so on. And honestly, I'm not here to judge like if this is right or wrong, because I know for sure from firsthand experience that it is true. Sometimes it's very difficult to circumvent the situation without, for example, having to pay, you know, this, I don't know, responsible person in a ministry or so. Of course, this depends on the country itself. I know this is a problem in Lebanon where I live. And again, I heard some people do it without having to pay any bribery, but many others, they couldn't do it without bribery. And I would like to say here, and this is really ethics, guys, you are the one. So there is like not, of course, bribery is wrong. This is definite. But I mean, where do you put the line? Will I not pay bribery and this might cost me my entire business? Or will I say, okay, because like there isn't any other way, or I have tried all the ways, then I'm gonna go with it. Again, I'm not gonna take a side here, but I would like to tell you that part of your business ethics is to draw the line there and to see how else we can do this, so that we have, as one of you mentioned, this like balance, okay, where I am achieving my goals, I am thriving as a business, at the same time I am being ethical, I am not harming others, I am not doing things that are wrong, and I am keeping my reputation, I am again walking the talk, keeping my values, so on. So I know that these issues will arise, and I want to tell you the right thing is not to directly say, but there is no other way to do this, let me, let's say, pay the bribe. This is directly jumping into conclusions without exercising more options. Again, I don't know, this is a case by case. However, what I want you to do is to always think based on like what you have learned in this program. What else can we do? Okay, so always think of other alternatives. Is there any other way I can tackle this problem? What are my options? Did I think out of the box? Use your innovation training and your innovative muscle, if you want to say, and think, how can I circumvent this? Okay, again, I'm not saying that it's definite you're going to be able to do it, but I'm sure that it will be much better if you do this full exercise than if you just say, oh, but like we all know that you really have to do this, otherwise it doesn't work, because you're just taking assumptions and you are really not trying to like do the extra step. Let me see, somebody wrote something on the chat, I believe. Okay, it is in times of crisis that principles are being tested. Most definitely. Most definitely. I totally agree. To maintain the same values and innovate while keeping the cause you are committed to in mind always. Great. I'm basically concerned about my inputs and how will they affect or have effect on my outputs. Would anybody like to explain more about this point? So inputs, you're talking about the theory of change, if I'm not mistaken. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I think we can move on. And one last thing, like before we move into the, what I have prepared and more discussion on the same points, really. What would you like us to cover in this series of lectures, if I want to say? So as I mentioned, we have one on March 1, March 8, March 15. What would you like us really to cover, given that, given the concerns you have in mind, given, like, I don't know, your worries, given your priorities, given where you are at, maybe in the process of implementing your business or your enterprise, or however you would like to call it. So anybody would like to tell us more what they would like to cover? Great. How can we weigh our business decisions ethically? So what we will be doing, and I think we're going to be doing this either next week or the one after, because I might also bring you a guest speaker during one of the sessions, is we're going to cover what we call the ethical decision-making framework. It's a framework that is like, it's resembling of many other frameworks you have seen, I'm pretty sure, in your studies, in your life, in your even in this program maybe, and we will talk more about it. Okay, so yes, there is a way. It's not a quantitative way, I would say. It is more of a qualitative way, but there is an ethical decision-making framework that you can follow. How can we apply the theoretical ethics relevantly in our context? Yes, and here, guys, I would like you to contribute as well. And this is why I asked you, like, I need to see you, I need to make this interactive, because if it's just a one-way conversation, it will remain theoretical. It's only when you engage, interact, ask your own questions, if you have specific questions, that it will become more applied and it will make more sense than, being theoretical. And as I mentioned, I totally am aware that this might be a bit dry, theoretical, and so on. All right, anybody else? Let me see if we have more. How can we fail stories of other entrepreneurs before reaching the success? Yes, we can talk about that as well, but doesn't have to be fail because of like ethical issues, or do you mean that, or is it just like failure in general? So failure is definitely one step in the way to success, and it is only from failure that you learn how to get better, how to do things more efficiently, how to and honestly, all the failure stories I've heard, guys, is because there was a poor understanding of the beneficiaries, of the customers, of the market. Okay, so there was a poor, what we call problem, no, there was a poor product market fit. Okay, so I was offering something, I think it's great, but I haven't really done my homework in terms of understanding what the market, what is the market? The market is the people who are going to use your product or service. They are the people who are facing this problem that you defined at the very beginning of this program. How can you correct your ethical mistakes? By the way, you can always correct your ethical mistakes. This is a great question. And I will simply tell you guys, if you want, refer to, let's say, what happened with Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook like around 2 years ago. Okay, and they I remember that in one of his, they call it F8 Summit, Mark Zuckerberg's, maybe I'll share it on the supplies channel on Slack, his like half of his talk, if not more, was about what they're gonna do to mitigate certain problems that arose with the safety, with the privacy of the platform. Because as you remember, Facebook was held somehow liable to changing or like influencing the results of the elections of not the newest one, but the past American elections. And Mark Zuckerberg went to be asked by the Senate and so on. And he like said that we know that maybe it was out of good intentions, so on and so forth, but we have to change certain things. And this is why a lot of these startup companies and tech giants, they keep changing their privacy policy, their terms of service, because they realize as they move along that some people are abusing the service, some people are misusing the service, and so on. So you have to be very attentive about these things, and you should not be resistant saying like, no, it's not true, I don't think so, because you have to mitigate and quickly. It's only if you correct your mistakes that you can continue to survive. Otherwise, they will honestly kick you out. Nobody will tolerate this. Yes, failure is a must to progress, and I totally agree. Okay, I think now we can move to the actual slides. 1 second. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and share again. And please, guys, let's keep it interactive as agreed. 1 second. All right, so can you see my screen? Great. Okay, so today we're focusing on Taaruf. As we mentioned, we're talking about ethics and entrepreneurship. So the whole objective behind this series, the three session series, is first of all to allow you to better design social startups or enterprises that have inherent ethical values. So they are inherent. In Arabic, we say like جزء لا يتجزأ. So it's like a vital component of this. To keep the human in the center of the entrepreneurship process. So always remember how the program started: human-centered design, empathy. You're gonna keep me, like you're gonna see me keep talking about this because it's at the core of things. And believe me, guys, when you keep the human at the center, you will always win. This is about the win-win culture. So always remember, who am I serving? What is my target? What is my objective? If you keep this in mind and you keep designing according to this, you will always do well. You will always have a good reputation. You will have happy customers. You will have satisfied employees, because nowadays, especially millennials and Gen Z, millennials like my age or a bit younger, generations that I believe your age or younger, they want to be engaged in meaningful projects. They want to be engaged in things that make sense and things that are serving the society. So it's very different than our parents or like even the bigger generations, where it was mostly about fame, money, and so on. Okay, so always keep this in mind. And probably you're gonna be employing or adding to your team people from these age groups, millennials and Generation Z. Is that correct? So you want them to be satisfied. You want them to be on board with you until the end. So how to do that? Keep the human in the center of your process. I want you also to have a solid ethical decision-making process, which is the framework I talked about, and we're going to cover in the next session probably. And finally, to be able to build a team and establish partnerships and collaborations based on the 3 T's, which, as I mentioned, they are like a gift from this program to have as embedded values in your venture or endeavor: the Taaruf, Ta'awun, Tarahum, or acquaintance, collaboration, and what's Tarahum? I don't know. Okay, so let's be honest. Of course, it's not that easy to take the right decision every single time. It's not that easy to always choose the ethical over the what somebody else is trying to tempt you to do, etc. And it will not always be clear, guys. Yani, in ethics, the whole idea is that many times you will face dilemmas. So you're not sure if this is like problematic or not. It's not always like, shall I pay a bribe or not? This is like clear. No, I shouldn't pay a bribe. It's clear. We all know that bribery is wrong. But many other times, it's really much more gray zone. Like it's in the gray zone. Like I'm not really sure if this is an issue. I'll give you an example. Let's say you are asked to be on board as an entrepreneur, somebody who has built a successful startup, etc. You are asked to be on the board of advisors for a certain company or organization, and at the same time, you know that your startup or your company is a supplier to them. So is there a conflict of interest there? So what do you think about it? Can there be a conflict of interest between you being, I mean, they're both positive things. One of them is like you are a supplier to a company. The other one, you personally were asked to be on the board of the advisory board, basically. Do you think this could be a conflict of interest? What do you think? Let me see the chat. Okay. So you have done wonders, you got somehow famous for being a great entrepreneur, and one of the companies asked you to be on, because they always have like new board members, okay? So they asked you to be on their advisory board. And at the same time, your company is a supplier to that company. So company X asked you to be on the advisory board, and your company, which is called company Y, is a supplier for company X. Do you think this might be a conflict of interest? It could be, Kauthar, as you are mentioning. So it could be, actually. Why? Because if you're on the board, you might have influence to get more business to your company, because your company is a supplier. So is it possible that you are abusing your power or your status in order to get more business? It could be possible. So what's the best way to do it? But it's not a clear-cut case. Like, it doesn't have to be like, oh no, I will never do it, this is very wrong. No, it's like, it doesn't sound wrong, right? So the board should expect that before offering the position. Okay, so what can you do, Zaid? What can you like do in order to avoid any potential problems?
By being like truly analytical with the problems. Like it doesn't have to benefit you if it benefits the company. So by drawing the line between where my benefit starts and where the boards or the company X, first company's benefits begin. So draw a line between them.
So you can do this, and by the way, this happened with me very recently. So they asked me to be on the advisory board of a company where my startup is a supplier, and I said like, but I'm really interested, but I just want to make sure there will be no conflict of interest there. So sometimes by just being transparent about something, you have mentioned it. So maybe in a year time, if they tell me, oh, there's a conflict of interest, I would tell them, but I asked you beforehand and you agreed. So it's not my fault anymore. Okay. So they are aware of it. So sometimes by just disclosing or like raising attention or like just making it a point, you can really make sure that you are not falling into this ethical trap. I'll just ask you for 1 minute, guys, because I need to bring my charger. Please give me a minute.
Hello?
All right, apologies. And the whole thing here, guys, is you really need to keep in mind that whenever you start implementing your business plan, you will really get immersed with like tiny details, with tasks, with like deadlines, and so on. And this is where it's very important for you to always keep in mind why you started. So this whole program is about the why. Remember the theory of change. What's my vision? What's my mission? What's the impact? What's the purpose? And I really advise you to very early on start a habit of having weekly meetings, okay, weekly meetings with your team, where you are not just talking about the daily tasks and the very like small things, but part of this meeting, at least like half of it, or I don't know, like at least 20 minutes to 30 minutes of it is dedicated to talking about, okay, how are we doing? Again, how are we contributing to our objectives? How are we doing in terms of really uh, following our vision? How are we doing in terms of our mission? This kind of weekly exercise will help you stay on track, will help you always remember why did I start this in the first place? And again, why is this relevant to you guys? Because you are all starting this because of a social or environmental problem that you want to solve. So there is this social aspect to it, and it's not just a commercial thing in nature. So you have to always remember this. And if you have a physical space where you are working, I mean, for us, it's not really now applicable because each one is working from home. It depends on where you are in the world. If you have this physical space, I highly recommend that you write again your vision, type it and like print it and paste it on the wall. Your values, they should be there. And I remember when I was also at a multinational company, similar to what Yasmin was saying, we used to have our values, in the hallways, on the intranet. Whenever you opened anything, there will be constant reminders, visual reminders as well about these values, because this kind of reminder is very important for us to always stay on track. Okay, in addition to the weekly meetings, in addition to the exercises with the people who are in the company and so on. Any questions here? And going back to the question I asked you, the ranking question, why should entrepreneurs care about ethics? Okay, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. Okay, if you think about that, you'll do things differently. So that is true. Think about it. It takes a very long time to build a solid reputation, but it takes only so little to like burn everything. Obviously, everyone wants to be successful, but I want to be looked back on as being very innovative, very trusted, and ethical, and ultimately making a big difference in the world. I hope this resonates with all of you. Okay, again, this is the why. This is why I'm doing this to start with. It's not just because I want to be rich, successful, famous, because I want to be trusted, I want to be innovative, I want to be ethical, and I want to make a difference in the world. If you keep this in mind, this will also change a lot of what you do. Steve Jobs says that deciding what not to do is as important as deciding what to do. So many times we have to decide what not to do, okay, as well. So some questions to reflect upon. What are some ethical problems you think you will come across as entrepreneurs? You mentioned some of them in the Menti, which is great. How will you build up your startup in an ethical way? And for me, this is the most important now, because I mean, I cannot really like expect from you much in terms of, in like 1 year time, what do you think some ethical problems might be? I mean, it's difficult to tell from now. However, I want you to think, how will I build this thing up? How, again, like you are really putting the foundation now. It's the foundation. How do I do it in an ethical way? how do I ensure that my beneficiaries are always treated ethically? We're going to talk about this more today. How will you ensure that your team is ethical? Okay, the whole team, not just you, the whole team. How will you ensure that you are growing your business and your team ethically? So it's great to start right, but also how do you make sure you are growing right as well? So these are some questions to reflect upon. And I want to tell you that although you ranked it last, but you have to keep in mind that not conforming to ethics has its repercussions. Okay, and by the way, nowadays, a lot of companies in the world, they are paying penalties. They pay penalties to governments. Like I am aware that the American government, for example, in case there are corruption in like the huge companies that have American offices, the government will make them pay penalties. And this is true. They are paying millions and billions sometimes of dollars in penalties because of internal corruption, internal. So somebody like did fraud, like the American government will make them pay penalties. So keep this in mind. So this is one thing. A bad reputation, definitely. You might ruin the entire relationship with your customers. And this might lead to failure. And I can also share with you on the supplies channel on Slack, a very nice video on a case study. It's called the Enron scandal. I don't know if you've heard of the company Enron. If you have taken like a business ethics course, probably you have definitely seen that case. So it was having like very innovative, very startup culture. It was like one of the fastest growing companies in the world. And then it like crashed so badly. It's one of the worst scandals in the world until this date, because the corruption inside the culture was corrupt. The culture was like favoring of doing things in a swayed way, and it completely crashed, incurring people a lot of savings, a lot of shares. A lot of the employees have invested in shares in the company, which like became worth nothing. So unethical behavior significantly increases the cost of doing business. Martin Luther King says that the time is always right to do what is right. So again, I know this is not that easy, but always remember it. So there's never a wrong time to do what's right. And doing the right thing doesn't automatically bring success, but compromising ethics almost always lead to failure. Okay, now I want to again focus on Taaruf, which is the first of the 3 T's. And for me, as I mentioned, guys, like each one of us will have a different understanding of these 3 T's. And honestly, for me, this is the beauty of it. It doesn't have to mean one thing. As long as you understand what they're about, and as long as you exercise them and like make them inherent values in your endeavors and your initiatives, this is great. And I would like to remind you how it all started: human-centered, human-centered. So are you all keeping the human at the center of your startups or social enterprises? Is it a yes? Is it maybe? Is it I will work harder on this? So like my advice to you, always remember this: human-centered, human-centered. So sometimes we might lose track because, oh, like my revenues are not doing that well. I really need to find new revenue streams. Sometimes the competition is too fierce. I need to do something to survive up to the competition. But if you make this human-centered and always keep the human at the center, I guarantee you that, again, your solution will resonate with a much bigger audience of people. You will have new partners who will believe in your vision. You will have new revenue streams that will help you financially and will help you stand up to the competition. If anything goes wrong, if you find any challenges, always remember it's the human at the center. We are doing this because we have this obligation toward humanity. Yes, a lot of businesses focus on making money. Okay, they would be revenue centered, and like there's also a big myth in the business world, if you are of a business major, and like even I graduated 15 years ago from university, but even when I was still a student, we were talking about like, okay, this is starting to change, like from putting the shareholder at the center to putting what they called the stakeholder. Okay, so what's a stakeholder, guys? What's a stakeholder? Do you know what's a stakeholder?
The people involved with the dealings of your company, like
Yes,
customers, employees, shareholders, partners,
exactly. So
the whole spectrum.
anybody, yes, the whole spectrum. This is great, the whole spectrum. So always remember, even in the business world, guys, we are moving from a shareholder centric perspective and view of things to a stakeholder centric perspective of things. So for me, I believe we are doing progress there. Why? Because honestly, of all the scandals, of all the crises, of the financial crisis of 2008, I mean, you might have been too young to remember what happened, but that isn't a long time ago. And it was really because of ethical problems, this whole like bubble that burst and that affected the entire economy of the world. And by the way, we are still living its repercussions until today. Of course, COVID is a whole new crisis, but also like we are still living its repercussions, is due to the lack of ethics in corporations. Okay. Yes. So always keep the human at the center. So now I'm going to cover 8 elements of an ethical organization. And a lot of you mentioned these, by the way, in the Menti. Respect. Again, respect with whom or towards whom, between whom and whom. Respect. So everyone, yeah, yeah, that's the easiest. Respect between you and your team members. Respect between you and your suppliers. Respect between you and your partners. Respect between you and your customers. Respect between you and your beneficiaries. Okay, respect between your company as a whole. Because, guys, are you aware that when you register a legal company, it will become an independent entity? So until today, it's like probably Omar and I don't know who and I don't know who in the team. But as soon as you register a company legally, the company now is a legal independent entity. So we can't think of it as, you know, an entity, an autonomous entity by itself. So let's say, can you tell me one name? Like, do you have any names in mind of your solutions or of your companies? So if we have a name, I can give an example with it. Okay, so it will become, Omar, what's the name of your solution?
More culture.
More culture?
Yeah.
Okay, so it will become more culture and the beneficiaries. More culture, and you're doing it in Morocco, right?
It's a play of word because it means Morocco culture and it's also like
More
seeking
culture.
more culture.
Okay, great. So but it's like also the relationship between more culture and Morocco, between more culture and the Moroccans, between the more culture and the Moroccan environment, between more culture and again the team inside of it, the shareholders, the partners, everybody who's affected by it. So this is, always think of all of these relationships. Honor, you have to be honorable. The honor should be one of the values of the company. Integrity, okay, so again sticking to one's values, making sure you are honest, you are true to yourself. Customer focus or human centered again, and beneficiary focus in some cases, because remember we said your customer beneficiary might not be the same. Results oriented, definitely, but not on the behalf of what the other, respect, honor, integrity, so on. Risk taking, you have to take risks. And if I'm an ethical and value based entrepreneur, this doesn't mean that I don't take risks, but probably in my risk assessment, I will also weigh some ethical issues as well. Passion for me is one of the most important entrepreneurial traits that will make an entrepreneur succeed. And guys, because you are social oriented, you know, you are really working on a goal from the sustainable development goals, your passion will drive you in the right way. Okay. And finally, persistence. You have not to give up, even if you fail. Keep going, keep trying, stand up, go again. So these are 8 elements of ethical organization. So again, keep these in mind when you are building up your enterprise. Now, how do we do that? Ethical entrepreneurship explicitly sets out to intentionally design the organization cultural fit. So, and I'll tell you this, guys, because you're still maybe at the planning stage. Okay. So you are coming and saying, I want to create this image of my company or startup or organization. This is the kind of relationship that I want to have between my enterprise and between the community around it. This is the kind of relationship that I want between the team and the customers or the beneficiaries. At this point, yes, it might be a bit theoretical, but the whole idea, if you keep exercising the design thinking process and the human centered design, you will keep looking at this organizational cultural fit as you move, and you will fix it accordingly. So you might, for example, realize that your biggest strength towards your customers is not your customer support, but it is, for example, your, let's say, not the speed, but the way you are fixing things. Okay, so you might do errors, you might be doing mistakes, you might not be the fastest service, but by having this two-way conversation, by showing respect, by giving them time, by being patient when they call you to complain, by I don't know, being apologetic and being decent and how you deal with them, you might create a different kind of relationship. Okay, so we might always say like, I want to be the fastest, I want to be the best, I want to be this and this and that, but in reality it might be a bit more difficult. So just like the other things you learned about in the program, you have to keep looking, okay, what's my strength in this relationship? How does my organization cultural fit look like? And how can I improve it? Okay, so this is again a work in progress. It's not that it's either that like I am great at customer support or I am completely lousy at it. No, I mean, it should be somewhere in the middle, and you should keep learning from your mistakes, keep capturing feedback. Like I was reading not a long time ago, how to capture customers' feedback. Like you have to have easy places where you do it. So for example, you can integrate a chatbot if you are creating a web app, because this will be easy for them to complain. If you're sending emails, you will tell them like, if you have any complaints, make sure to press this button and tell us about it. Yes, Omar.
Yeah, I just wanted to share practice regarding this point to win customer satisfaction. This is a real story. I used to work in an IT company. There were like maybe 3 centers around the world, in India and Ireland, Morocco, and maybe Australia. And the center in Morocco was always the first to have the 90% or more than 90% satisfaction. And the other centers, they were questioning us, how did you do that? And it was just like a simple technique. What it was the callback. So even if the problem is solved, there is always like someone who will get paid to just call each one of them and receive feedback, even if the problem is solved 2 or 3 times maybe, and then it's in the data, and then you can like increase the sales or even get more business.
Thank you for sharing. I really love this example, and I totally agree, because you are not just making sure, as you mentioned, the problem is solved, but you are taking it one step further, and people will always appreciate this. Okay, so this is a great insight, Omar. Thank you. And this is something you can try to embed in your, again, ventures and your initiatives that you're working on. So it's for having follow up, having these calls is always very, very, very important, especially at the beginning, because you, not just at the beginning, but I mean, it's like what will make it or break it, I would say, because they will either like turn their back, never come back, or they will say no, they are worth another try. Because at the very beginning there's like a good chance, a really good chance, that you will not be perfect at everything that you do. So how can you compensate for this? It's through this relationship. Okay. Also, like weaving ethics into how we form new ventures will lead the way to a renaissance in the startup world, thus ushering in a new enlightened entrepreneurial era, leaving the digital dark ages forged in Silicon Valley to annals of history. So what I'm trying to say here, guys, is that it's not just about, again, like becoming the next $1 billion company, acquiring the biggest market. It's how we do this ethically, how we earn our place in the market, how we earn our reputation. I really need to move to this. So I'm sorry, I'm skipping one slide, but just for the sake of time, because I promised we finish at 7:30, which is in 4 minutes. And then I will stay longer for any questions with pleasure. I just want to explain more what Taaruf could mean in the context of starting your initiative, endeavor, or business. So the very first thing we talk about, and you mentioned in your values, I'm very happy that you did, is trust. And again, trust, what kind of relationship is this? Who are the constituencies here? Is trust, again, between you and your team. So ta'aruf with your team. You need to understand them. You need, as let's say, a co-founder or a founder, whenever you add more people on board, or even like, let's say you are 3 now, you need to really understand each other very well. Like each one, how do they think? What are their personal problems? What are their intakes on several like issues? Like you have to do these exercises to get to know each other better. So you have trust. So this is internal. Externally, you have to establish trust with your beneficiary or with your target audience. And remember empathy. So empathy is also here. How do I do empathy, guys? I mean, you tried to do it. Was it that easy to really empathize with our target audience? Is it that straightforward? Is it enough just like to do an interview with them and then khalas, I know that I did empathy? It takes more effort usually. And in order to get to a point where you really can say like, I am now really empathetic with these people, with this target audience, you have to build the trust. And I always give this example. Let's say in Lebanon, we have a huge Syrian refugee crisis. If I want to do empathy and I'm trying to solve like the Syrian refugee, a problem related to the Syrian refugees, I definitely have to go to the Syrian refugee camps, right? Okay, so I went there. Now I have to go and talk to them. How do I talk to them? Do you think they will just open up to a stranger who looks different? I don't look like, they will tell that I'm not one of them. So how can I like get to the point of empathy that I want to establish? I need to establish trust first. How do I do that? How do I make them trust me? How do I make them open up and share with me their problems, their worries, their pains, their gains, as you did in the persona and empathy maps? How do I get this? How do I establish this trust? So I have to do the two-way communication, right? I have to, first of all, again, remember, human-centered. I'm a human. Am I just representing my startup? No, I'm a human. I'm like them. Yes, we are maybe coming from a different geographical area. We might have different educational backgrounds. We might be from different economic and social status. We might have different problems, different, I don't know, hobbies. But at the end of the day, we are both humans and we both definitely have some points in common. So what do? You open a two-way discussion where you are leveraging your similarities, right? So for example, of course, a cliche point is like you talk about the weather. oh, like it has been raining for a week now. What are you doing in this rain and this cold? How are you making sure that the kids are well heated, they are staying warm? Anything to start with, to break the ice, to bring you the humanity in you, and not just like, oh, I'm coming, to talk to you about more culture, and this is our vision for more culture. Like, they don't care at this point. You need to establish this trust and this relationship. Okay, you have to do this two-way communication. Bring the human in you. Talk to them. Like, for example, let's say I'm talking to a woman, a Syrian refugee woman, and she invited me into her tent over a cup of tea. If I say, oh no, thank you, I really can't, I'm in a hurry, I really can't, do you think she will trust me as much as if I told her, yes, definitely, with pleasure, like I would really love that and I truly appreciate it? It's a big difference, right? So you have to, again, like, treat them equally. Like, there is no difference here. And this is how you establish trust. And empathy, two-way communication, trust are key for you to develop this ta'aruf with your target audience. It's only when you really understand them, and this is where you didn't score yourself like really high in the questions I asked on Menti, only then you will be more confident about your solution, because you are bringing something meaningful to the table, something that they will want to use, something that will make a difference, will change their lives, so on. And of course, as soon as I broke the ice, as soon as I started this discussion, what do? We have to be honest and transparent. Okay? Again, not just honest about what I'm coming to do and what I have in mind at this point. No, but we have to, for example, if you found something new, you say, oh, wow, like I really didn't know about this. Like, can you tell me more? Like, I really thought that this is this way. Like, can you explain why you're saying it differently? Okay. And I have to be clear about, again, my objectives. I'm like really trying to understand. This should be your objective. You're not selling anything at this point, because I don't think you have something ready to be sold. But you are really trying to gain a better understanding of them, of their needs, of their problems, of their desires, of their goals. And when you are clear about this and you say, we are really trying to come up with solutions to make your life easier, I really care to, like, for example, if she mentioned something really nice in the story, like, oh, do you mind if I go talk to that person? I really think there's something valuable there. And it will really help me have a better understanding of things. Okay, so it really makes a big difference how you approach your customers / beneficiaries. Also importantly is our ta'aruf, as we mentioned, with our partners. Okay, and we're going to talk more about this in next session during ta'awun, because our partners really are collaborating with us to achieve something. Okay, so but the same principles apply. I need to know who they are. I need to have this two-way communication with them. I need to make sure that we are transparent, that we are empathetic of each other, that there's a real trust between us, and of course, for this relationship to be governed by honesty. So again, I don't want to keep you much longer, guys. We are already at 7:33. I will just read quickly the chat. If you have any questions, shoot. If not, you are also, if you have something else to do, if you need to leave, you are free to do so. And I hope that this first session, again, I know it's a bit like ethics related, values based, but like we try to also make it somehow practical and more applicable. And the best way for you to do this is to always reflect. Okay, so reflect. So always like write it down on like a notebook, or however you like, okay, what are the values I want to have in my enterprise? How do I want the relationship between the team to look like? How do I establish better empathy with the target audience? Because it seems that you need to work more on this. And this is an ongoing process. Don't think that you know, we just do it once in the human-centered design. No, it's like an iterative process. You have to keep going every now and then, and like doing more of these one-on-one interviews to understand better your customer, etc. Okay, so like try to put them into practice. And as you go, as you mentioned, as you like drown deeper into the tasks that you have to do to implement and so on, always remember, am I staying true to my values? Am I always having my vision? You know, like, am I doing things to go there? Remember the theory of change. I have inputs, I have activities, I have outputs, but they should at the end lead me to that bigger vision, to that bigger impact. Like, is the flow, does it make sense? Is it, you know, like a meaningful, logical flow to execute? Will it increase my chances of being able to achieve what I want to? All right, again, in an ethical, fair, inclusive, and proper way. So again, the best way to apply is to reflect, to write them down, make sure with your team to reflect on these. And if you have any questions, I'm all ears. If you have any questions also that maybe you'd like to share in private, you can also shout out at Slack, or maybe in our one-to-one, we can talk more about it. Thank you, Omar, for your great. It wasn't a boring session. Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Zaid. I'm always worried that ethics sessions are boring. All right, so again, guys, I'm gonna stop recording now, and in case you have any questions, I can stay for a bit longer.